Welcome to Christian Fitness. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're still talking about tennis. I know you're probably wondering, how long are we going to talk about tennis? For a while, mainly because tennis is rated one of the number one sports that you can do that helps increase longevity. So it's not just because we like tennis, even though we really do like tennis, but it's because there are so many movements in it. And there's so many benefits from it. It's even just doing drills, and that's why we're doing this, because the drills are amazing. There are different eye-hand coordination that helps. So there are lots of facets about tennis that I think is really, really good. So we hope you enjoy this. We try to make these as fun as we possibly can. But
and today we're going to do some tennis drills, but they're good for any sport. They're good for just everyday functional mobility, which we like to call it, which is just, everyday life. Enjoying everyday life, things you do in everyday activities. But today we have a ton of tennis facts. We're going to look at the history of tennis, particularly the scoring system. I mean, makes no sense at all, so we're going to try to make some sense out of that. Anyway, we're going to look at the history of tennis. So whether you're a tennis fan or not, at least you're going to get a history lesson today. Hopefully you'll have fun with that. But of course, we want to start in the Word before we get to our exercising. So we are going to be in Matthew 5, and we are doing our red letter study. Basically, the words of Jesus, what Jesus said, his instructions for us. These are, the Bible is our instruction manual for life. So these are direct words from Jesus. This is the Sermon on the Mount, part of the Beatitudes, or the Sermon on the Hillside. It's got a lot of different names, but we're going to be reading out of Matthew 5, and we're just going to do verses 8 through 10 today, because you can break these down, verse by verse, just one at a time. So here you go, Matthew 5, verse 8 out of the Passion Translation. What bliss you experience when your heart is pure, for then your eyes will be open to see more and more of God. And we just love the notes out of the Passion Translation. Here's a note for verse 4. When your heart is pure, note, or when your heart is full of innocence. So I love that. When your heart is either full of innocence or pure, then your eyes will be open to see more and more of God.
You know what I love about that? I mean, you receive Christ as your Savior, and you're changed, you're a new creation. So your point of view, and what Jesus is trying to say is that your point of view is changed. You see things differently. And we're supposed to see things in the eyes through what God, so your perspective changes, everything changes. Things that bothered you should go away. Things that you may see or insult to someone else, you're supposed to see them through the love of Christ. Because, of course, it's easy to see something that's not good, but it is better to see things good. In other words, a life example, especially for women, they may see another woman and go, well, I don't really care for that outfit. But you can look at it as a perspective of that person has either done an excellent job of trying to put that outfit together, or that they have a quality, and that's because God sees us in His image, so we should look for qualities of God in each other. It's so simple to point out something that isn't God. But when you have received Christ, then you've been given every ability to be in God's presence, to walk in His joy, to walk in His peace, to see things through His eyes, and that's what He's doing here. Here Jesus has just healed the sick, cast demons out. So all of their perspectives are different. And that's when we look at what this is, it's looking in the eyes and perspective of what God sees. And He wants us to see that. So Jesus is teaching them, this is who you are. This is what you've received. So now apply it to every circumstance and everyone around you. And I think that's the most important when we start looking at the Beatitudes and everything that Jesus is teaching. He's teaching them who you are, not just what you've experienced by seeing healing, seeing people get free from demons and everything else. It's see people the way He sees them and the way God sees them.
Well, and if you look at this, chronologically, that's normally how we do our studies. So if you watch some of our shows prior to this one, we're doing this chronologically. Jesus just chose the 12 disciples, spent all night in prayer, chose the 12 disciples, and He wasn't critical. And I think that's what Lori's talking about, the clothing and some of these things, is being critical of someone else. Jesus didn't call us to be critical. When He was praying about which 12 disciples, do you think He could have been critical? Look at what Peter did, denied Him 3 times. Judas, He chose Judas, who was going to betray Him. So He did all of these things without being critical. He looked at them with the eyes of love. And then he did that as
Right.
well when he came down from the mountain. He gathers the disciples, goes down to the hillside, and all of the regions came about. They heard what was going on. They heard about this Jesus, and everyone came, Gentiles included, from every region around. People walked for days and days to come, number one, to hear the word, and to number two, be healed. But Jesus didn't look at them and say, well, I don't know if I can heal you. You're a Gentile. He didn't judge them. He wasn't critical. He healed all. As a matter of fact, go prior to this, it says he healed all that came near him. And I love that Lori's talking about that critical, because this verse talks about that. It says innocence in that cross reference, or pure. And if you think of a child is so innocent and pure. We have to teach them to be critical. I mean, you have to tell them, oh, no, don't go near that stranger. Because kids just want to rub it up, they want to hug, and they haven't been taught that critical spirit yet. They're just open, they're pure, they're innocent. And Jesus is saying we need to be more like that. Other scriptures, he talks about being more like a child, having childlike faith. And we've got to not be critical. I think that's what I take out of this for me personally, is stop being critical. Don't overanalyze everything. Just love people. Yes, they look different. Look at the 12 disciples. They were all different. They were diverse. Not every one of them looked like, they didn't fit this cookie cutter mold. They were tax collectors. They were fishermen. They were treasurers. So anyway, just a variety of people that Jesus wasn't critical, and he didn't judge. So anyway, that's his first beatitude here, verse 8. Don't be critical. Look at people
Right.
with a pure and innocent heart.
And I think when you read the Bible, these are your instructions from Jesus. But when you're looking at this is Jesus saying this to you.
Right.
So hear this again, and then think of it as Jesus is speaking to you right now, and he's saying what bliss you experience when your heart is pure. For then your eyes will be open to see more and more of God.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's you have experienced Christ as your Savior. You have experienced the love of God poured into you. So when you think about it, he's saying, look at what you've experienced. When you walk in God's presence, and when your mind is focused on Jesus, then you're going to see everything different. So he's making a declaration over all of these people and us as we read this, is what bliss, what joy, what peace, what presence of God do you receive when your heart is pure? I think that's beautiful.
Well, I love the end. He says, you want more of God. If you want more and more of God, do this. Be pure
Right.
and innocent. So there you
Yeah.
go. It's really
Well,
pretty
he's saying you
simple.
already are.
Yes.
So he's changed
All right,
your
verse 9.
viewpoint.
Hold on. It's going to end up being a 4-hour Bible study if we don't move on. Verse 9. How joyful you are when you make peace, for then you will be recognized as a true child of God. So actually, he's the Prince of Peace, especially, you get near Christmas season, everyone's singing about peace and the Prince of Peace. And so there you go. Verse 9, you'll make peace and be joyful when you follow verse 8, when you seek for more and more of God. Then verse 10, how enriched you are when persecuted for doing what is right, for then you experience the realm of heaven's kingdom. And here we go. We have a quick footnote out of that from the Passion Translation. The Aramaic is being rejected. So how enriched you are when you're persecuted or rejected for doing what is right, for then you experience the realm of heaven's kingdom.
So it's really, you've been given the mind of Christ. Think about it this way. When you receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, didn't your perspective change? Didn't you feel different? Didn't you feel joyful? Didn't everything that you saw from that moment on look different? Wasn't the grass greener? Wasn't the sky bluer? It was for me. So everything changed. Plus, I was healed at a point where I was dying. So my perspective changed, and everything I saw was through the eyes of God. And that's what he's saying. How joyful you are when you make peace. And when you make peace, you're literally pouring out the love of God to someone else, and you're walking in God's presence because we are peacemakers. So that's what he's saying. But Jesus is saying, this is who you are, this is what you have. And it's something when you read this, think of it as, I have this. And your perspective changes on everything you look at. So as Jesus is saying this to us today, he's saying, how joyful are you? Or how joyful you are.
I love verse 10. It says, you're persecuted when you're doing what is right. That's the key to that. When you're doing what's right, you don't have to worry about the persecution. If I know what I'm doing, what the Lord's asked me to do, if I know what I'm doing, what's right, and you get persecuted for it, he's basically saying, that's their issue, not your issue. If you're doing what's right, them having an issue with you, don't even sweat it. Let it roll off you, like water off a duck's back. Because as long as you're doing what's right, that's what's pure, that's what's innocent, that's what we're after, that's what makes you joyful, that's what makes you peaceful. You can have peace when you're doing what's right and the persecution comes. I have total peace because I'm doing what's right.
And he's saying you're enriched when you're persecuted or criticized or whatever it is. And then know that because of that, you're joyful and that you're making peace through all of that. This is who you are.
Hey, we can relate it to this show. We get persecuted for doing a fitness show and trying to focus on the body when we're in the Word before we do anything physically. But anyway, so we're trying to build people up spiritually and physically. We get persecuted for it, but we know we're doing what the Lord's asked us to do. So I don't take that persecution on. People want to persecute, that's fine. Okay, that's your opinion. I'm not going to sweat it. I'm going to keep peace personally, and I'm not going to be antagonistic about it. I'm not going to attack someone or debate them if they come against what we're trying to do in the ministry. So this really resonates with us. In general, as Christian, you're going to be persecuted by whoever, maybe an agnostic or an atheist. You're going to be persecuted, but as long as you're doing what's right, you're doing what Jesus has asked us to do, then you can have peace about it.
I think the most important thing is to experience God's peace, His joy, His presence, and stay in that. If somebody is bothering you, so we're just giving this life experience.
How to apply the word. There you go. We always talk about how to apply the word.
We're always saying, how do you apply the word? So you stay in peace, and you're joyful because you've been given that. Are you a God pleaser? Because when you do these things, when you allow yourself to go in a direction, whether it's jealousy, whether it's anger, whether it's whatever it is, you lose what's been given to you because you've given that up for something that is contrary to the love of Christ. And when you have the mind of Christ, it means you have the heart of Christ. It's the same thing. So it's literally focusing on what has God given you, stay in that. And when you wake up in the morning, you wake up with God breathed in you, so you're here, so you're in God's presence, and you focus on Him, and you're thankful through everything you go through because God's got a purpose and a plan for you. It's not to harm you, but to do good. And when you know these things, then your perspective changes. And what He's doing is teaching him, this is your perspective. This is who you are. This is how you act. This is how you see others. This is how you react to everything that goes on. So I think that's the key, is when you start looking at what Jesus is saying, when you read everything in red, and that's why we love this study. I mean, I think we've done the red letter study, I don't know, for
it could
years
take years
now.
to go through
It will
Jesus
go,
said and did.
yes, but it's so that you know that you are hearing Jesus speaking to you. And that's a different, you anticipate that. It's a different perspective.
Well, let's get ready to exercise.
Oh, yeah, we can do this
a half-hour
forever.
study. But what's amazing on this is Jesus just chose His disciples. Now He goes down to the hillside and He's teaching these people, look, you're going to be persecuted if you follow me. If you abide by my teachings, you're going to be persecuted. So He's warning them ahead of time. But also, He just not long ago came from the temple where He healed the paralytic man in the temple. And the
Talk about
Sanhedrin,
persecution.
right? They wanted to kill Him for it.
Yeah.
So He's saying, look, I'm persecuted for doing what's right. You're going to be persecuted. Be prepared and don't worry about it. Have peace. All right. So end of our study. All right. Let's get into a little bit of tennis real quickly. We're talking about hobbies. Lori mentioned it earlier, how healthy and great any hobby is, but tennis in particular. And here are some numbers. They have what's called an MET, a metabolic equivalent of task. They assign these numbers called an MET, but sitting still is a 1. And then, of course, all these household chores are amazing. Going upstairs is a 5. You're 5 times more active walking upstairs than you are sitting still. And then if you add hobbies to these, they're all a little bit more. So anyway, do more housework because a lot of them are really good for you. But then hobbies themselves, look at this. Walking for golf is a 4.4. Lori mentioned tennis is a 7. You're getting 7 times the benefit. Right. 7 times more active than just sitting still. Of course, jogging, skipping rope, and running a 7-minute mile, which is really moving, is twice as much as tennis. But in tennis, great hobby, great way to be active and have more fun. I think tennis is probably more fun than some of the, kitchen activity maybe, or washing and waxing the car. So that's why I encourage you, get a hobby to have some more fun.
It's interesting if you think about it. You might not be a tennis player. That's okay. You can get a tennis racket and you can pick them up anywhere at a Goodwill or anything and only use it for, and we don't even have one in the set today, and use it like you see some of the background pictures of just bouncing the ball. on the tennis racket, that's an activity.
All right,
So
we're going to warm
that's
up.
a good activity.
We're going to warm up real quickly for
There she
the
is.
last few minutes we have left.
That's exactly
you don't
what I
have
was
to be on a
talking
tennis
about.
court. You can do this in
You
your
can
home.
just do
it's
this.
good eye-hand coordination.
Right.
But we're
I
going to
forgot.
warm up a little bit. We love to warm up before we exercise. We'd love to have time to stretch and do a cool down and all those. We just don't have enough time in a half-hour show. We need a longer show. You rewind it.
You know what's
Do it
funny?
again.
I forgot that we had that, and it just happened to just jump in right as we were talking about. But if you look at what she's doing, it's eye-hand coordination. That's so good for the brain.
Absolutely.
So that's why activities, yes, they're good for your body and they're good for longevity and staying stronger and healthier and everything else. But the other part of it is extremely good for the brain. And that is very important.
Oh, there's hundreds and hundreds of studies out about how it can help stave off dementia and all kinds of
Right.
issues as we age. Keep your brain active, but get your body active. So
And you
we'll
feel
do it.
better.
We're going to do it today. Okay, we warmed up a little bit. If you're at home, of course, you can just march in place. You don't have to have the cool little rebounder. You could jump on your treadmill, but we just want to get the body warmed up instead of just jumping into some of the things we're going to do. We're going to start with the simple one. We're going to stretch a little bit while we do this. But it's just, if you have a tennis ball, great. Run and grab a tennis ball. But we're going to start, we're just going to open our arms as wide as you can. And you're just going to pass the ball from arm to arm in front to start with. Then open them back up. Just pass the ball. Again, this is just really a stretch. Going to open up the shoulders. Then to get a little additional stretch on that, we're going to go all the way from left to right on it. So instead of meeting in the middle, I'm going to go all the way to the right, come back, and then I'm going to go all the way to the left. So we started with the ball in the middle. Now we take the ball from right side all the way to the left side. Try to keep your shoulders down, nice and relaxed.
This really is a really good stretch.
Oh yeah, it's a great stretch. Good warm up.
And it's not like you're doing something wrong here. it's
Yeah, be
different when you
careful.
have to talk and do these things.
And then you look at somebody else and you think, am I going backwards? It's like looking in a mirror. Which direction am I going? Is it backwards? All right, while I'm doing this, Lori has some amazing facts for you.
That's
We
right.
have great tennis facts for you today. We're going to bring forward some history of the sport, which you may not know.
So, in the earliest form of the game of tennis, it can be traced back to the 12th century in France, where it was played with the palm of your hand, which I think is amazing. I mean, that absolutely is amazing. And I mean, I taught tennis many years ago. And especially when you're teaching kids or anybody, your tennis racket is an extension of your hand. So really, when you go to hit the ball, when you're holding a racket, it's the same as using your hand. Handball,
There is a sport, handball.
yeah,
where-
handball,
yeah.
which is a very interesting sport. It's hard, but it's interesting, but that's the same thing.
Yeah, if you think of the racket as an extension of your hand, it's so much easier. All right, next one, we're going to do the drop. This is Lori's favorite. We were playing around with this before we started shooting and throwing balls all over the studio and everything. What we want you to do is bounce the ball, and as it comes up, just catch it with your palm down.
This does
So
not bounce
this is
very
great
high.
for your grip strength. You want to really grab it when it comes up. So it's going to bounce. Yeah, hopefully you have better floors. Maybe it bounces better on the grass. Oh, there. Now I'm
Oh,
on
good.
Wimbledon since it's our tennis show today. So you bounce it and do a downward grip. Great. And that's what we were talking about earlier. This is great. You know, opening jars, opening doors, just increasing your grip strength, increasing your forearm strength.
Well, that's the key is when you catch it, squeeze the ball and then bounce it again and then squeeze it. So you're literally grabbing it and squeezing it.
Which is good for almost any sport because we're strengthening the forearm. You think golf, softball. I mean, almost every sport that you would use your grip, especially tennis, this is really good for that. And you want to work both sides.
And
Especially-
eye-hand coordination.
Especially in tennis where you may, you're going to be dominant, let's say with your right hand. You want to make sure to work out with both arms so that you don't have a Popeye forearm on this side and then a little
And you
skinny
will.
arm on this side.
It's very common to have, well, more now you focus on being equal and working out and having equal strength when you play tennis at that level. But still, I think it's great to be able to do this. I'm a right-handed person, and no, I don't play tennis left-handed, but
But you
be
do a
able to-
two-handed backhand. So
I do
okay.
do a two-handed backhand sometimes, most of the time.
All right, this is an addition to that. So that was bouncing just to get you warmed up, get your eye-hand coordination, get you thinking, okay, now we're going to drop it and try not to let it go very far when you drop it. So what you can do is drop it and just grab it with the other hand. So you drop, it's called a drop and grab. So we're going to drop it, and grab it as quickly as we can. Again, great for eye-hand coordination.
This is
Get your
so
mind engaged.
hard.
You can play with it. You can let it drop a little further. Drop it. See if you can go, 12, 14, 16 inches. See how quickly you can do it.
What's harder is to talk and do this. Whoops.
Replace your hands as quickly as you can without the ball. Even see if you can keep the ball from moving much at all. Try to keep the ball in one place. But again, great for your grip, great for your grip control.
I think the hardest thing is doing this, starting it. It's once you get going, it's a little easier. But this is what I was talking about when you think about the activity that you're doing, and it's so good for the brain because it's eye-hand coordination, but it's keeping your brain very, very alert in what you're doing. It's super focused. I have to think about what I'm going to start.
I'm just going to play. I'm going to play around. This is so much fun. I mean, you can do this just sitting on your couch.
By the way, this is why we do things like this, because working out isn't like the most exciting thing in the world to do, but this definitely makes it more fun. And if you can do this with someone else, it kind of makes it even more fun. You can laugh at yourself when you make a mistake.
And vary it. Have fun with it. Like Lori said, we're just trying to have fun with it. You can bounce it, let it go way down, see how close to the ground. You can grab it before it falls, see if you can get it right before it hits the ground. Just make it fun. Increase your grip strength.
Whoops.
All right, Lori, share another history fact with us.
Okay.
Well, I goof off over here.
The word tennis comes from the French word tenez, from the verb tenir, meaning to hold, receive, or take. The server would call this out to their opponent to indicate that they were about to serve so they could be ready to receive or take the serve, which I think is pretty cool if you think about it.
Yes, you may have always wondered, tennis, where did that word come from? What does it mean? So it's tenir, which meaning, hey, get ready. So think about this.
I'm going to serve the ball.
This is way back France in the 12th century. Maybe no racket, maybe it was just their hands. So can you imagine some French guy in those outfits they used to wear back in the 12th century getting ready saying, what was it, tenir? Tenir, get ready. Tenir, get ready for my serve. Anyway.
When you think about the history of tennis, it's pretty interesting. I mean, I remember playing even with a wooden racket at one point. Talking about hard.
All right, we're going to grab a second ball for this next exercise.
Oh, we are? Ew, I forgot this one.
You can do the drop with two balls. It's the harder. Anyway, we're going to work grip strength again. This is what we call, it's just riding a motorcycle. So you just grip the tennis balls, and you're going to do wrist curls with your knuckles facing up. Your knuckles would face up toward the ceiling, and you're just going to, we call it a motorcycle because I think of, pulling the throttle. Give some gasoline to your motorcycle. You're just doing a wrist curl.
This actually really feels good. So if you're on a computer a lot, these are great exercises for carpal tunnel.
Great carpal tunnel prevention, carpal tunnel syndrome prevention. Really works out the muscles all throughout the forearm. Yeah, I mean, you go fast, you go slow. Then we can turn it over and we go the other direction. So now you curl and try to touch your fingertips to your wrist. Again, squeeze the ball, get a really good grip. You should feel this. Just a few, you do 10 or 15 of these, you'll really start to feel it through the forearm.
You really can feel this. I know it might feel silly doing it, but it's really good for you.
And then you vary it. You go reverse, just do circles.
I just heard a crack.
Roll it over. Yeah, the circles are great. Go counterclockwise, do them both clockwise. If I can do that, do them both counterclockwise.
Oh no! I just did this.
Like Simon says, follow the leader. All right, Lori, give us another tennis fact. So we've learned that tennis started in 12th century France with just their hand, and then the name came from tenir, the verb tenir, to mean get ready.
Right, and if you've ever watched tennis, there's a scoring system, and the system is love, 15, 30, 45, and there are three theories to these, which I thought was interesting because I didn't know this, and I love tennis, everything there is about tennis. The first theory was in the 14th century. Oh, I don't even know if I can say this. Jeux du Pas courts in France were 90 feet long and 45 feet per side. When the server scored, they moved up 15 feet. They score again meant 15 feet forward. Since a third score would have put the server right at the net, 10 was the last bump forward. So the sequence was 0, 15, 30, or 40, or love, 15, 30, or 40. The second scoring system resembles a clock. So you would play, now these are theories, so you would play your way around the clock, starting at 0, love or youth, which meant egg, or like an egg shape, 0. Then moved the minute hand to the 15, then 30, then 45. In order to win by 2 points, the 45 was changed to 40, so that 50 was available as the 2-point average. And here's the third theory. Because the fascination by Europeans with astronomy, and particularly the graduated 60-degree arc of the astronomy sextant, that the third theory of scoring is based on completing a circle. According to the early records of the game in France, sets were played to 4 games. Since 60 degrees make a full circle, then multiplied by 6, it was thought that matches were 6 sets of 4 games each. Therefore, each point was worth 15 degrees or points, contributing to the whole. The game concluded when one player completed the full circle of 360 degrees. Okay, that is very interesting.
So anyway, 3
Those are
theories.
huge theories, which none of them apply now to why we do it. But I thought it was interesting that they actually had a mathematical reason why the scoring system was what it was and what it is today.
What I think is crazy is we don't know, but it used to be 45.
But we just do
That's
it.
why we put it as 15, 30, 45. That used to be 45, then they moved it and changed it. But they used to think it was a clock, that they would take the clock and move it to 15, then 30,
Or
then
they'd
45,
move
and then
up.
you would win. But they didn't have clocks in the 12th century like that, with the minute hand. So anyway, we don't know, but those are 3 of the theories.
I think it's interesting.
I just think it's bizarre that no one knows how the scoring system started.
Right.
But those are 3 of the theories. Pick whichever one you want and run with it.
Does anyone
I
really
still think it's
know?
kind of weird that the whole scoring system is bizarre to me. All right, we're going to sit down for just a moment. We're going to work our core with the last minute. If you can do a full sit-up, I would encourage you to lay all the way back. You're going to sit up, bounce your ball, and catch it. If you can't do a full sit-up, just lean back a little bit, do a little crunch, come back up, and bounce it. All right, and we have one more quick tennis fact for you before we close, because this is fascinating as well. At least
Am I
thought
getting
it
up
was.
to read that?
No, you're going to stay right there. But our last tennis fact.
Maybe you can read it.
The term
Oh,
love for 0 is believed to have originated from the French word for egg, l'œuf, which resembles the number 0. So there you go. So yeah, what scoring system starts with the word love? But evidently it was l'œuf, which was an egg, which resembled a 0. So the bizarre scoring system of tennis, now you know where love came from, and now you can pick one of the 3 or 4 theories on how that scoring system took place. But anyway, keep doing your sit-ups, keep doing your crunches, bouncing your ball, and just having fun with our tennis hobby. Thank you so much for joining us. We always pray for you with 3 John 1:2. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. Thanks for joining us.